Welcome, everyone, to the Firing Demand podcast. On today's episode, we have the pleasure of interviewing Dennis Kelly. Dennis is the CEO of Postalytics, a fast-growing software company that automates direct mail marketing, measures the results, and connects it to CRM and marketing automation. Dennis specializes in technology, product development, sales, marketing, finance, and HR. Welcome to the show, Dennis.
Thank you, David. Ken, very nice to meet you both, and I'm excited to speak to your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So first things first, tell us a little bit about yourself and your path in the e-commerce world.
Sure. So, I've been involved in technology startups here in the Boston area for the last 30 years. Had the opportunity to leave a huge corporation and join a startup, and it's kind of kept me very engaged ever since. And, I've been involved in primarily software businesses that support different types of business models. And so one of my startups, though, is actually a retail organization, and where we began to sell in e-commerce using an e-commerce platform. And now with Postalytics, we have a number of e-commerce companies that are our customers that use Postalytics to help them market and sell to their own clients. And, in some ways, we've sort of taken an e-commerce approach to attacking a very old and traditional marketing channel. And so Postalytics takes direct mail marketing and really turns it into much more of a digital experience, and enables marketers to create an account for free, log on, generate campaigns, put in a credit card, pay for what they use, never have to talk to a human, just the same way you would with an e-commerce platform. And so lots of familiarity with the market, and like I said, we have a number of clients that have been successfully using Postalytics.
So Dennis, you mentioned you've kind of been in the startup industry for about 3 decades. That's a long time. That's pretty cool. If we could turn back time, and you had mentioned you went from corporate to startup. So can you go over a couple of the fears that you had of like, oh, I'm going to leave this safe environment and then go and try to grind it out, and as an entrepreneur in the startup world? Can you share a little bit of those fears and what you did to kind of overcome that?
I felt like I was, I didn't really have control of my own destiny, and I felt an urge to get involved in something that was way earlier stage, and to have a much more direct impact on my own success. And so what was tough was, as a young salesperson who's doing well, you can make some pretty good money with commissions, and so I felt like I was living pretty well. And I joined a startup that was founded by a college friend of mine and his brother. Joined a company and where the three of us really didn't know what we were doing. It was all first time starting a business for all of us, and so there were a lot of fears that I had, about whether or not I made the right decision, whether I was too young, right, and too inexperienced to just go off on my own. That was really one set of concerns, and that those were articulated to me by people that I would talk to about it. Then the other set was really walking away from a pretty clear path to making good money to a very, very unclear path. And I think for the first one, regarding my age, it really boiled down to whether or not I could have enough confidence to just feel that if I just worked hard enough, I'd be able to get through anything. And then regarding the income, I was talking to my father about it, and And he said, listen, if you're going to do something like this, do it now. Do it before you have kids. Do it before you have a mortgage. You know, you can always go back and get a job in corporate America. And you know, he was right. And so, you know, took a haircut for several years from an income standpoint, but, you know, it all ended up paying off.
So looking back on that, I'm sure going into, say, putting in your notice that you're going to resign and pursue this other opportunity, there was some uncertainty. How long did it take for that uncertainty to leave? Or has it ever left? Okay. All right. Okay.
You know, so I left, I worked for Prudential Insurance, and we were selling corporate healthcare plans here in the States, really marketing the first HMOs that were being rolled out across the US by Prudential. And so, you know, I learned a business. I learned healthcare, how it works in the US, how insurance works in the US. And I jumped into a healthcare software company, but the two businesses had nothing to do with each other. And so I really didn't feel like I knew what I was doing for a couple of years. And, you know, at the end of the day, you can fake it somewhat. But, you know, that feeling that you really don't know what you're doing, it gnaws at you. And so it took me a while. And then, you know, after a couple of years, it all started to click. We changed the business some and simplified things a little bit. But, you know, as a startup person, I think you always have fears. And you have to become comfortable with them. And, you know, they're a part of you. They're not something you can just ignore. You have to be able to acknowledge them and say, hey, this is a part of this life. And you know, and sometimes it's those fears that help drive you too, right? And help keep you working late and help keep you, you know, a little bit on edge and not getting too comfortable. So, you know, I think they subside over time, but they're still always there.
And the reason I asked that question is, you know, both Ken and I, so my background is CPA, Ken is a network engineer, both very stable jobs, have both, you know, inside of the last 2 years, fired the man and are going out on our own. And I would be lying if I said there wasn't a little bit of uncertainty there. And I think a lot of our listeners that, you know, if they're thinking about quitting, may have some uncertainty, or post quitting, realizing, hey, this uncertainty doesn't really go away. It's good to hear those stories and hear the things that you did to overcome those fears. So,
yeah. And, you know, I think as you grow over time and you acknowledge them and you accept those fears, they're just part of your day. You know, they're less dramatic, right? You guys have probably seen that yourselves, right? Like it's still there, but it's just not as prominent in your thought process.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. So, so walk us through. So that was the first venture, was this software company. And then, you know, what was next? What came next?
But that company, I worked at for about 8 years, and we were able to successfully sell that business to a larger healthcare software company. And I stayed on at that company and was VP of sales for a couple of years. But again, you know, after a couple of years, I was like, all right, you know, I've tasted what it's like to be on my own. And, you know, it became pretty clear that this was not a long-term thing for me. And so right about that time is when the .com world started to blow up. And then I met another person who had some similar ideas, and we formed a company to create one of the first online calendar systems.
Okay.
And so if you're familiar at all with Google Calendar, we essentially built what Google Calendar looks like and acts like back in 1998. You know, we were the online calendar for some really big internet-based properties. And, you know, it was a whole .com thing, you know, raise a ton of money, hire a ton of people. And, you know, as the .com thing started to fall apart, we were in discussions with some companies to either invest in us, kind of strategic investors, or to acquire us. And so as we started to see the .com world starting to fizzle out, we thought, well, we better sell this thing while we can. And so we ended up selling the business to a company called Palm, which I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember the Palm Pilot, but
Yeah.
it was like the first big handheld computer that became kind of part of the popular culture, right? So, you know, and those handhelds had a calendar on them, and we had the biggest user base of web-based calendar users. And so we ended up staying at Palm for a couple of years and building out a whole bunch of different services around that. But once again, you know, big publicly traded company, you know, I had a nice role, I had a good team, but I was commuting a lot from Boston to Silicon Valley. It was kind of a killer, especially with the young family. And again, you know, it just didn't make sense for me to hang out and spend a lot of time at a big company like that.
Very nice. Very nice. I know we're going a little off script, but I'm loving your stories. It's hard for me to envision life without a digital calendar. And I know that, you know, it's hard to imagine doing business without calendar invites or with, you know, writing it down on a piece of paper. And so that is wild. So
yeah, everybody had paper planners
to
carry around in their briefcase, and you handwrite all of your appointments. And you know, what we thought was, well, hey, let's just replicate that experience and put it up on a screen, but then give people the ability to do the invitation, right? That was such a huge breakthrough that you know, just put in their email address and we'll send them an invitation to their calendar. And then what we did that was pretty cool is that the people that were using electronic calendars at that time they were on their local PC, right? Or on their handheld, on their Palm, they would use the calendar. And so things like Microsoft Outlook and Lotus Notes and things like that were PC based had their own calendar systems. So we would do a synchronization between your Outlook calendar and your any day calendar, so that, you know, your family could log in and see what you're doing, right? Or you could send invitations from any day to multiple business people and connect them all, because you couldn't really do that with Outlook or with Palm. So, and you know, that's how we sort of made our way around the local storage of calendar information to the web.
Okay, very nice. And so you worked with Palm for a little bit, and then what came next?
Well, while I was working with Palm, some of the engineers that had been with me for a while at Any Day and I we were running all of Palm's web properties at the time. And, you know, we noticed that the data center operations were becoming more and more challenging as the network volume started to grow on the internet. So, you know, this company, we did a quick little company with a couple of engineers and built out this data center product that we called Adjoin Systems. And it was designed for companies that were growing their internet presence and to have a little bit of a console to understand their internet traffic better, and to see when it was starting to fall apart and when a server was about to fall over. And so these, it was a real engineering-led project. And, I was a CEO, and, I'd help out with kind of product management but it was really about the code. And so we didn't really raise any money. It was a very small effort, and it got quickly snapped up by Computer Associates, which had a big data center kind of software operations group. And so I didn't have to stay at Computer Associates. My pattern was pretty well established at that point. I wasn't going to hang around. So I left there after we did join systems for a year and a half, 2 years, and that was about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm observing a trend here where the universe continues to pull you back into entrepreneurship, which I love, and I think a lot of our listeners can really relate to. So I really want to pivot and get talking about e-commerce, but how many more times did the universe pull you back into entrepreneurship before you got into Postalytics?
Two other times prior to this.
Okay.
So another software company, and then the retail company that I did. And then after I got we sold the retail company, I wanted to get back into tech. And so then that's what ended up becoming Postalytics.
Okay. So for let's start with, what is direct mail? For some of our listeners may not be familiar with what that is. So let's start with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So direct mail is a marketing effort, and it uses postal mail, like printed physical mail, to deliver messages and sales and things like that. So it became very, very popular with catalogs originally, right? So the idea of printing a catalog, sending it out, and then people buying, right? So direct mail was the original channel of the industry that was the predecessor to e-commerce, right? Where, today you go online and you see a catalog, but in the old days, people would print a catalog, mail it out, and then you'd fill out forms and mail the orders in, and with a check, and that's how it all worked. And so Montgomery Ward started really the whole concept, and it became very analytical and very performance oriented. One of the very first performance marketing channels, and so was a huge channel to sell things through the mid 2000s, and right around the financial crisis, as e-commerce and the internet started exploding. Financial crisis happened. People pulled back a little on their direct mail spend, and it's been in a sort of slow decline ever since. So total direct mail volume is down about 30% since 2008. And so you may ask, okay, Dennis, you're investing in a declining business. What's happened to your brain here? And but the reality is that it's still a $40 billion spend annually in the United States alone. So it's a big business, and it's a business that has been largely neglected by technology. And so what we've done is we've built a software tool that we call Postalytics that enables marketers to essentially pull together a campaign and send it out with a very similar experience that you would have for an email marketing campaign. So if you ever used a tool like MailChimp or Constant Contact or any of the email marketing tools, you go online, you put your creative together in an email template, you upload your list, you press send, it gets sent out to email servers, and then And then there's tracking about what mail's been delivered, what email's been delivered, who's responded, this type of thing. We designed Postalytics to essentially do the same thing, except when you press send, it doesn't go to email servers. It goes to printers that are located around the country. And the printers actually take the digital stuff that we do, turn it into a physical printed thing that gets generated, gets put in the mail, and then gets tracked for its journey to the home. And then we have tools that help the marketers understand who responds to that mail, so that they can see, all right, here's the people I sent to, here's the people who responded, and then I can synchronize that back into my CRM, like HubSpot or Salesforce, so that direct mail, printed direct mail, can work right alongside email in campaigns that are combining both. And so that's really the idea, is throw technology at a big sector that's been neglected, and help people be more productive and have a better experience.
I like that. I think it's really interesting. So taking a step back, and I'm going to date myself on this a little bit. So this was pre-internet. When I remember getting Sears catalogs every year, and so pre-internet, it's like, how are you going to know what's going on? And so we would get a Sears catalog, direct mail, and I really never understood what that was. So now fast forwarding to today, I think the concept is it's kind of like you mentioned, it's declining, but maybe no one's had grabbed a hold of tech yet and kind of integrated it in, right, with deep integration. So I think it's really interesting. So Dennis, can you explain, like, this is kind of a two-part question. So how can direct mail help, let's say a purely e-commerce business? Let's say your sales channels are your direct-to-consumer website. Maybe you sell on Amazon, maybe you sell on Walmart. How can that help a business like that? And the second part of the question is, do you have to have a list of previous customers, or can you do outreach to new customers? Can you grow your customer base or increase your cart value of your existing ones?
So what direct mail and specifically Postalytics is used for in the e-commerce setting is often to augment the email marketing that has already been established. And so, for example, we have a case study on our website. There's a company who, had been emailing to old customers and say, hey, you haven't ordered in 6 months, here's a special. And they've been doing that for several years, and they saw a declining response to that campaign. They called it their win-back campaign. And so what they decided to do was to plug Postalytics in to their email marketing tool. And so there was a several email sequence that would go out in this win-back campaign. And if a customer didn't open 3 emails in a row, then the software, the email marketing software, would say, hey, let's send them a big oversized postcard instead. And with a great offer. And so there would be a 3 to 4 postcard drip sequence that would go out to augment that existing email marketing tool. And so they ended up having huge success because, these people were not accustomed to getting something in the mail from this company. And this, when somebody is not opening your email, that doesn't mean they don't want to hear from you. It just means that they don't want to look at your email. Maybe they get, 500 emails a day like I do. And so, by switching it up and using a different physical channel to reach somebody, you can really drive great success out of an existing marketing campaign that you've already got. So that's kind of one type of use case. And what was the second part of your question, Ken? Sorry.
Yeah, the second part is, can you reach the existing audience, or can you do outreach for new clients?
Yeah, great question. So about 40% of our clients are using Postalytics for lead generation, right? So going out and finding new people. And so one of the great things about direct mail is this. Addresses, names and addresses are public information. You can go down to your county or your state records, and you can find out the names of people that own homes and who live in apartments. It's completely public information. And so there are not the restrictions regarding sending mail to those physical addresses that there are for email marketing. And so, you know, it's not cool to buy email lists, right? And send out emails to people that have never heard of you before. But with direct mail, you can do that, and it's kind of what happens every single day. So you can use direct mail to send to very, very targeted lists. And so we're not a list company, but we can hook people up. We have a lot of friends in that business, right? And you can buy mailing lists that are very accurate and send targeted promotions to them using the mail. And so it's a great way to both grow your customer base, but also to experiment and learn, you know, what are those segments and what are the messages that actually are meaningful and are breaking through the noise to your core audiences. Because you can do this without spending a huge amount of money and without getting in trouble with your email service providers or, you know, any of the stuff that you would get if you were to buy email lists that are the equivalent.
That's pretty amazing. So before I turn it to David, one more follow-up question on that one. So let's say you get a list and you're going for, you know, lead generation. You're sending out, let's say 5,000 direct mail or 10,000 direct mail. And can you maybe describe the back end of how Postalytics like kind of digs into the metrics on those, on how do you know who those reached and what actions they took? Can you describe that a little bit?
Yeah, great question. So there's a couple of different things. We've built tracking mechanisms to track both the production and delivery of the mail, as well as the response to the mail. And so from a production and delivery standpoint, I mentioned that we have print partners. And so when we generate a campaign, each piece of mail is being tracked through the printing process. And we've got a dashboard that says, here's exactly where each piece of mail is in the printing process. And then it gets handed off to the Postal Service. And there's a little known tool that the US Postal Service has. It's starting to be implemented in other places around the world, where there's a little barcode that gets attached to some pieces of mail. That barcode we have connected back to the contact that was originally imported into Postalytics. So every time that barcode gets scanned by the US Postal Service, it's giving us information about where that piece of mail is in their delivery process. And so the Postal Service built that for their own internal tracking, but they made it open so that anybody could tap into it. So we're able to track the mail all the way through. And along the way, the Postal Service may say, you know what, this address is no good. They kick off an event that they call it a return to sender event. We actually capture that electronically, alert the customer, say, hey, you got a bad address. And then we block that address from ever being used again in their list. So from a delivery tracking, there's a ton of data that we're capturing like along the way and helping the customer deal with all that. Then we've developed proprietary tools to help the customer understand who responds. So often you'll find an offer on a piece of mail that'll say, go to this URL and respond. And so we've developed ways to make those URLs unique So when David gets a URL, it's different than the URL that Ken gets. And so when you go to the URL, David, I know this is David from this particular piece of mail from this campaign, as opposed to when Ken responds. And then we've all also wrapped that up in QR codes. So if you hit a QR code with your phone and you go online and you complete an order, I'll know that it was David who placed the order and Ken did not.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. I have more questions, but David, I'm going to kick it over to you for now.
I've got a couple eating at me too. I'm
Yeah.
loving this conversation. So, say someone's listening to this and they say, hey, this is something I'd like to look into. With Facebook's new regulations this year, with email, email addresses are getting more expensive and conversions are lower. And so I do think this would be an excellent opportunity for people to explore. So say someone comes to you and says, my primary product is weightlifting gloves. And I'm interested in doing direct mail. Where do I start? And can you comment on like the marketing calendar that would potentially lead to the most effective, conversion really is what you're chasing?
Right. So, the good news about folks in the e-commerce world is they have names with good addresses, because they've shipped the product to somebody. And so, that's a great start. And that's where we advise people in the e-commerce world to start is, hey, let's pick off the low-hanging fruit. Let's focus on people you've already sold to. And you can worry about cross-sell, upsell, right? So they place an order for something and maybe they didn't take advantage of something that was presented in the shopping cart as an upsell or a cross-sell. Well, we can connect to that e-commerce system, take that order, take that address, insert the creative, and send out a postcard with maybe another 10% off to try to get them to bite on that extra cross-sell opportunity. So that's one easy area. Another one is I'm having a sale, and I've been hitting my email list of existing customers, and I'm going to send direct mail to the people that haven't opened my email, which is probably 70 to 80% of your list is not opening your email. And so you can send direct mail. Don't send to the people who are opening because direct mail costs more, right? But be smart and focus on the people that are not getting your message, that aren't learning about your sale. Or send direct mail to the people that have opted out of your email, right? So a lot of times people opt out of email because they get too many emails, right? And again, there's no can spam law or anything like that to prevent you from sending them a physical solicitation. So, for the e-commerce people that we talk to when they're starting up, we say, hey, there's two ways to look at this. There's a lead generation kind of acquisition concept. And then there's, marketing to your existing base using a new channel. And often marketing to the existing base is easier, gets better responses because people already know about the brand, right? They're familiar with it. And they're owned. They've already spent the money to get that customer, right? Then you use another channel to help get, generate more revenue off of that investment you've already made.
Okay. In one follow-up question, and Ken, I'll kick it back to you. I know we're both itching with questions here.
Yeah.
So I used direct mail about 2 years ago to find off-market real estate deals. And I went pretty deep in learning about it and found that there was little tricks and tactics that were helpful in increasing your conversion rate. For instance, when I put a picture of me and my wife on the postcard and said, I'm a local investor, that really increased conversion. we also selected a font that appeared to be handwritten in blue ink, and that increased conversion. And you'd split test your campaigns against each other. And so, and I'm sure the real estate direct mail and e-commerce direct mail may be different, but what are some, as people are, if they've decided to go down this road and are coming up with the creative, what are some things that they can do to increase the conversion rate?
Well, I think you said the magic word, and that is testing. Mm-hmm. Right. So we advise that our clients approach this channel and any marketing channel with a testing mindset from the beginning. And so it's interesting, those techniques that you mentioned. We do see a lot of customers, and in the e-commerce space, they will use those specific things you mentioned: picture of the owner, his family, handwritten font in a letter. But often that's not to announce a sale. That's not to, hit you with a powerful visual and a big offer. It's to thank you and maybe ask for a review, right? Because, it's more of an emotional thing that you are driving there. They're like, hey, I'm a real person, this review will help my family. And that's the image that you are promoting in that type of a communication. And so we recommend that folks test at multiple layers. They test format, postcard versus letter. Then they start testing headlines. They start testing calls to action. They start testing, font size. It's really an ongoing process. And the best direct mailers, the best direct mailers have been doing it for 30 years. They have what they call their control that they have been running on it through tests for sometimes 10 or 15 years. And every single campaign involves some test in order to continue to refine.
Interesting. Yeah, this is a little bit of a tangent, but on the topic of including pictures of your family, I think that's something that e-commerce sellers should really consider, because you hear a lot of people say, I like to support local businesses or family-owned businesses. And the number of people that have Amazon Prime accounts that believe that they are purchasing from Amazon is astounding. And, I often tell people, yeah, we have both Ken and I have family-owned businesses. This is what we use to put food on the table. And while you're using Amazon as a platform to purchase, you are purchasing from a family-owned business. And I think including that would be helpful. But like you mentioned, test. I always get skeptical of people that do not advocate for that. So, yeah, no, I couldn't agree with that more. So, all right, Ken, I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, sure. So a couple more follow-on questions before, I know we're getting short on time, before we get into the fire round. So Dennis, if you could maybe at a high level speak to conversion rates. Like you mentioned, there was a campaign with QR codes. Let's say you're trying to drive traffic to a website for a new product launch. Could you speak to maybe at a high level, what is the conversion rates of that direct mail campaign or industry kind of standard?
Yeah, sure. So the conversion rates vary, quite a bit based on a variety of factors. What I would say generally is that when you are mailing to known customers, conversion rates are typically double that of cold leads. And so we see conversion rates often to existing customers in the 5 to 10% range. And, from a lead generation perspective, when they're cold leads that you're mailing to, you see, 1.5 to say 3.5%. So,
okay.
Yeah. So, it's significantly higher when you're mailing to existing leads. Now, we have some campaigns, we have some customers that have hit 18%, right? Because they are really drilling in and sending an offer that is time sensitive and important to that recipient. And they get very, very high response rates. So, you know, it's really it's the audience that you're talking to, and it's the offer that you're making that will be the primary sort of driver of response rate in our experience.
Sure. No, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, that's, you know, kind of similar to email or, you know, it's pretty relative, I think. The follow-up question on, and probably what everybody that's listening to this is thinking is what is the cost of direct mail? And so, you know, not to get super down in the weeds, but just at a, so let's say I'm launching, David mentioned weightlifting gloves, I think. So we're launching a new set of weightlifting gloves, and we want to do a lead gen campaign for, let's say, 20,000 really targeted, customers. So what would, at a high level, what are the cost of a campaign like that?
Sure. So the way that we do pricing is probably different than what you run into when you're dealing with like an agency or a local print provider. So we're a software company, so we have plans, right? So we have a free plan and we have subscription plans. And what folks will do is they'll go to our website, you know, check out some of the case studies, you know, learn a bit about how the software works, watch some of the videos, and they'll sign up for the free plan. And they'll set up some creative, they'll run a little test campaign, maybe send some mail to themselves, and, you know, and you can do that. You can send out individual pieces of mail, one at a time, 5, 10, 15, doesn't matter. And it can all be personalized and everything else. So you can do that, and it's pretty expensive per piece, like maybe, you know, $1 per piece, right? But then as you start getting volume, we can go get better deals with our print partners, right? So if you're going to be sending out 20,000 pieces, then we can drive down that per piece cost, you know, more down into the, you know, 50 cent, 60 cent range per piece. And so it becomes far more, as you scale up, it becomes a far more, the unit economics work better.
Sure. No, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for sharing. So David and Dennis, anything else that we want to cover before we get into the fire round?
I've got one more. So if someone wants to dip their toe into the water for direct mail marketing, I would imagine that there's a certain threshold of their marketing budget that they should set aside to see if this works for their customers. And what I found when I was doing direct mail for real estate was every sequential campaign got better because my list got more refined, and I'd weed out the addresses that didn't have responses. And so, and actually, Ken, you and I are getting ready to do some fiscal year 2022 planning. So if Ken and I want to dip our toe into the water, what portion of our marketing budget should we allocate to give this a good, you know, an honest effort to see if it's a good fit?
Yeah. So I would recommend that folks think about spending about 10% of the marketing budget on direct mail and give it a year. Okay. As you said, if you approach it with a testing mindset, and if you are touching your list multiple times from different angles using different methods, you're going to learn and you're going to start seeing results. And so, you know, there's been a lot of studies that show that people are often touched around 7 times before they make a decision. And so, you know, if you're not reaching them with your email, right? If you're not reaching them with your digital, you've got to find a way to get in touch with them. And so, you know, allocating 10% of your marketing budget to send them something physical that they have to pick up and touch and look at, regardless of what they do. If they throw it away, they throw it away. But unlike that email, that digital ad, they actually have to look at it and make a decision as to what to do, right? So you've got your e-commerce provider, you've got good addresses, you've got good names, right? You've got sales history. You can put something together that can target these people that have fallen quiet through your other campaigns. Think about 10% of your budget to go do that.
Nice. I like that. And I like that strategy on, target segmenting into the unopens. And so really you're getting maximum penetration. If 30% of your list is opening, the other 70 gets a direct mail and you get more on that. So really like that. Yeah, I'm sure David and we have tons of questions. We're going to be talking about this after the show for sure, but, be respectful of your time. We're coming up on time. So are you ready for the fire round, Dennis?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What is your favorite book?
A Soldier of the Great War by Mark Halperin.
Okay. What are your hobbies?
I'm old.
What are your hobbies outside of being an entrepreneur?
I love golf, skiing, basketball, any kind of sports where I can be running and jumping and, being outdoors. I'm really happy.
Awesome. Very cool. What is one thing that you do not miss about working for the man?
I do not miss sitting on calls and meetings where people drone on for long periods of time. And everyone has to sit there quietly and pretend that they're paying attention.
Nice. Same. What do you think sets apart successful entrepreneurs from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
You have to have a feeling that you can succeed no matter what, as long as you work hard enough. If you have to believe that, if you believe it, then it'll happen.
Nice. Love that. Love that. All right, David, you want to close out the show?
Yeah, Dennis, how can people get a hold of you?
Sure. Well, first, go to postalytics.com, our website. Got tons of stuff there. And you can hit me up on LinkedIn. It's Dennis John Kelly, LinkedIn. And those are the two primary ways that folks get in touch with the company or get in touch with me. And, love to hear from anybody. Sign up for the free account, try the software out, would love to talk with any of your clients, any of your audience.
Awesome. And to the audience, we'll be posting links to all of that in the show notes. Dennis, want to thank you for being a guest on the Firing the Man podcast and look forward to staying in touch.
David and Ken, it was a blast. I really enjoyed talking to you guys, and we'll look forward to staying in touch too.